Let's go. I'm now joined on RCB Radio Ireland by Amanda Bearse, who played the role of, first of all, Marcy Rhodes and then Marcy Darcy in the iconic TV series Married with Children. Amanda, I suppose for the interview we'll go with Marcy Darcy just to make it easier. Where do we begin but to start with your relationship with Ed O'Neill or Al Bundy? It was really like Marcy had found that one person she hated the most in life.
Well, there was a lot of comedy to be derived when characters are polar opposites. And certainly that was the case with Marcy and Al. And we had great fun with the scripts that featured that conflict. And, of course, as mean-spirited as Married with Children came off sometimes, there really wasn't that at the core.
I know, yeah.
There is what we like to think of as some sort of affection behind some of those barbs, those verbal sparrings that took place. But behind it was great fun too, and I think that's what the audience responded to.
Yeah, and I suppose for me, one of the episodes really sums that up would be where you really showcased that chemistry between the two of you on stage was the No Man episode involving Jerry Springer. And really highlighted the level of conflict, Marcy's really hatred towards the whole no man thing, and Al feeling like it was a rebellious venture for masculinity.
That's one of my favorites. It was fun to make. Jerry Springer's a lovely guy, and he was a good sport. And we, meaning Ed O'Neill and I, had a lot of giggles making that one, because all Al could do is Marcy's flying all of these insults at him. The only thing he could do was repeatedly keep calling me a chicken.
Yeah.
And we would giggle over that because it looked like Al's head was going to explode when he was trying to come up with something else to say. But that one was truly a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, and there seems to be an awful lot of that in relation to your, don't get me wrong, your femininity as Marcy Darcy, in relation to the jokes, in relation to the chicken jokes, in relation to your status or your structure, in relation to that. But I suppose in certain episodes, then in relation, you can see that tension between Al really respects your sort of privacy in the episode where you go out and hunting and the bear and all the three women are in sync at the same time, or that really showed a sort of a tension where Al would say, "Whoa, I need to just back off here a bit."
Well, and again, that's another favorite. That one was supposed to open that particular season. I can't remember what number that was, but because it was controversial given the subject matter that all three women hit their cycle at the same time, they pushed it to later in the season. That was another one where I can remember giggling so hard on the floor, lying on the floor with Katey and Christina, trying to get the lines out because the situation sometimes gets the better of you. And again, a very funny episode. But, the writers, the creators of Married with Children, they are the ones who we have to thank, because it begins and ends on the page. Yes, we brought some fun performances, all of the actors involved, including guest stars, but the writing was so strong, especially in each character's voice. And again, when Marcy and Al were on stage together, were in situations together, it lent itself very well, but they're the ones, the writers, that created it.
And Amanda, you had two husbands in your time in Married with Children. First, Steve David Garrison plays your husband for 4 seasons before Ted McGinley came on board as Jefferson and played the role of a sort of a Ken doll husband. For me, looking on, one of your best episodes with Steve was probably that court case against the hotel for the illegal videotape. And with regards to Jefferson, the episode where you're in dispute over the premises with the Bundys over the apple tree. And what are your memories of both those two episodes and working with Steve first of all in that first one, and then Jefferson in relation to that afterwards as well. There was an awful contrast between Steve and Jefferson. There were two completely different sort of husbands.
And two completely different sorts of actors. And I learned a great deal from David Garrison in the few years that he was playing Steve. And you seem to bring up these controversial episodes, which is great. The Hop On In, or whatever that episode is called.
Yeah. It
was based on the Hop On In and the hidden cameras. That was referred to as the lost episode. Something to the fact that it didn't make it on the air, but it made it into syndication. Although I really don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
But we were pushing the envelope with the degrees of storylines and situations that these folks would get us into, and that one was great fun. David is a very fine actor. He is a New York Broadway guy, very successful, and he's a very nuanced type of performer, and I just learned a great deal working with him, and missed him when he left, and always loved it when Steve would make a guest appearance in the later seasons. Ted McGinley is just the most likable, adorable guy. His character was a little more broad strokes as opposed to Steve's idiosyncratic types of choices. But again, I got lucky. I had two very different but very wonderful men to work opposite.
Yeah, and Amanda, your relationship with Katey, Sagal, Peggy Bundy worked a treat on screen. Even if your characters were chalk and cheese in terms of Peggy being a lazy, deadbeat sort of housewife, while you were trying to make it big in the business world. And what are some of your favourite scenes shot between you and Katey Sagal?
Well, the one we already mentioned about the cabin, because we really were like two children in church who got the giggles so badly, and we couldn't stop. So that was a lot of fun. Katey is a really warm, big-hearted person, and just over the course of the entire series, we had a lot of fun together. And even though these characters were written again so differently, the common ground in that, relationships are hard, marriages are hard, and these two women bonded over that. And the philosophy of Peggy Bundy, that's a story in and of itself, but I think Marcy really benefited from it. I also enjoyed one time we were gathered around a table. I don't know if the girls were playing poker, but I remember that being a lot of fun because there were other female characters besides Kelly Bundy.
Yeah.
In the scene, and but just overall, I have had very fond memories of working with Katey, and she created a character so different from herself, as you saw with her other work in Sons of Anarchy and many other roles that she's played. But the role of Peggy Bundy embraced her sort of homage to Bette Midler. She'd worked with that as a backup singer, and it just brought a lot of fun and sort of a lightness to the intensity of some of the things that were coming out of hers and Al's mouth back and forth to one another.
Yeah, and Amanda, when you started in 1989 with Married with Children, you had two very young child actors there in David Faustino and Christina Applegate, who were probably not known then to the outside world. And how over the 11 seasons that Married with Children ran, all those throughout, you got to witness those people grow up before your eyes and develop into the actors that they've become today in relation to David and in relation to Christina. And could you always sense that, wow, these are two really gifted child actors. We're putting real difficult characters and situations in front of them, and they're really excelling. And the relationship, the brother and sister fight between the two of them, really it gives rise to what many people see as the common dispute between the brother and the sister. And how did you feel working with them at the time? Did you see that they were growing up before your eyes?
Well, let let me rewind the tape a little bit, Jim, in that we made the original pilot of Married with Children in December of 1986.
Okay.
And they then decided, the producers, network, so forth, studio, to recast the two children. There were other actors playing the roles of Bud and Kelly. Now, Christina Applegate, as young as she was, and I believe she was 14 at the time, she already had an accomplished resume and a really wonderful work on a dramatic series. Don't ask me the name of it.
Okay.
But she already had, as young as for one so young, an established career. And David, who was 12, we reshot their scenes, and the original pilot made it on the air in April of 1987.
Okay.
So they were, again, a part of the series on the air from the get-go. And it really was wondrous to watch them grow up and to be a part of their lives and their families. Christina's mother, Nancy Pretty, is a lovely, lovely woman and very much a part of the whole working of the show. And same with David Faustino's mother, Kay, because they were on set a good bit of the time. So it wasn't just the kids, it was also the moms. And even David Faustino's brother, Michael, ended up guest starring, I think, in several episodes. Christina she landed in the show as a fine actress, and she's grown into just a supreme comedian. When I began directing the show in 1991, I was given, and as that time progressed behind the camera, I was given a lot of shows that feature her. And I used to say to people, she has more funny in her little finger than all of us combined. She's truly gifted, and also just the loveliest human being. And David, I don't know in recent years, but as a young man, he was thoughtful. He too grew in his craft and really honed his comedic ability as well. And I think he watched and learned. He was surrounded by people who took the work seriously and were helpful to one another often. And again, it was pretty wonderful to be able to spend 10 years of their young lives with them.
Yeah, and Amanda, in your own perspective, why do you think Married with Children still connects with a global, worldwide TV audience today, 20 years later on from its first episode? And that's what gives rise to our meaning of a cult classic when we're doing these documentaries, that a comedy series that can stand the test of time, that if someone picked it up today they could and had never seen Married with Children, they could watch it from there and watch it from scratch today. And that must be something that you must be very proud of still to this day, Well,
it was a very important part of my life. It afforded me my second career behind the camera, where I've been, for 25 plus years now. And I think the bottom line is that it was funny. In terms of a global audience, it's a very American show, and it's also very specific to the era in which it was created, the 80s and 90s. And there's something sort of kitschy and fun about looking back on that. It also pushed the envelope at the time, and it would not be made today, I don't think, because it truly had some really offensive elements to it, and that people are more careful now in the way they speak about each other, and rightly so. But this is just goofy, silly fun, and it had no social redeeming value whatsoever in our country or probably anywhere. It's just really something that you don't have to think about. You just find something to laugh in it or about it, and a lot of people did. And it really is quite astounding that it has never left the air, and that here we are 30 years later from when it first aired here in the U.S., that people are still enjoying it, second and third generations.
Yeah, and if I ask you, Amanda Bearse, how do you want to be remembered for your role as Marcy Darcy in what was the iconic comedy series Married with Children? If you to say in 3 sentences, what would you like to be remembered as in relation to that role?
Okay, Well, I'll tease you a little bit here, Jim, because the first thing I'd want you to be remembered for is that my last name isn't pronounced that way.
Okay.
But don't worry, everybody in the U.S. says it that way too, but it's actually Amanda Bearse.
Okay.
And I'm grateful to have that role representing my career, because that is what I'm most known for as an actor. I really quit acting after that show for the most part in order to really focus on my career behind the camera. And so the fact that I got to have a lot of fun on camera as well as sharing that with people who enjoyed watching and going out and meeting fans as I do at some of these comic conventions and so forth, that's what they respond to. They say, you really made me laugh. And I think comedy and laughter is a huge part of the human spirit in terms of what keeps us going, especially when the world is such a crazy place. So if that's what I accomplished, then I'm very grateful.
Well, Amanda, it's been a real pleasure speaking to you here on RCB Radio Ireland, live on 92.5 and 94.8 FM, on our special documentary celebrating the global success of Married with Children. And we wish you all the best in your future endeavours. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you.